Looks like we're live. We are live. Trying to get everything put together on my end. All right. So we'll wait for some people to roll in here. All right, so I want to clear my throat just a little bit. I'm gonna give a brief. Excuse me. All right. Sorry, I got this cough from the sickness I had the other day, like 2 weeks ago, and it's still just kind of lingering around. But let me make sure that's good. All right, so we're going to get right into it. Basically, what I'm going to be going over today is just how to get more appointments. It's going to be super critical moving forward to be able to get more appointments from the leads you're generating and not having to generate more leads, but just being able to get more from it. So there's really a few ways that we're going to talk about today, actually 5 ways on how you're going to be able to maximize this. And we're going to start with some things that are going to be more process oriented and then work into how can you have a long-term back-end growth plan, not only a short-term growth, short-term results, but also back-end long-term growth results as well from like training. So just before we get going, just so you guys know, we do have a coaching program that helps students, other wholesalers in the real estate space go from doing inconsistent deals, maybe one every once in a while to doing consistently 1 to 3 a month. So just let you guys know that, but we're getting ready to rock and roll here. So there's going to be a ton of value. If you feel like there's any point in this call where you're like, wow, I got to go implement that, just drop a fire emoji in the chat. And then also one other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be actually dropping a free resource on how you can boost the amount of conversations you can have daily. We were actually able to double the amount of sellers we were talking to by making calls. So we're going to get all into all this stuff throughout this call, but stay in tune and let's get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and list out the 5 things we're going to talk about today. So number 1, we're going to talk about how to contact more of your leads. So what does this mean? Contacting more of your leads means when they come into your system, how many leads do you not actually ever get on the phone? So that's one thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how you can double that, at least how we doubled it for ourselves because we didn't even know. Number 2, we're going to talk about how can you boost the conversations you're having daily. So right now, your phone numbers are probably spam. You're probably struggling to pick people for people to pick up on the other side. It's probably because your phone's showing up as spam risk. So I'm going to tell you exactly how to not have that happen, to where we are actually able to get 1 in 4 sellers on the phone when we do outbound calling. So that's another big piece of it. Number 3 is we're going to go into a more effective training process for training your sales team, or even training yourself for this matter. You can put yourself through the same things. Number 4 is how to actually generate more appointments by reactivating the leads you already have in your CRM. We spend all this money on leads in our CRM. For example, we have 15,000 leads in our system that are not appointments that we've never given an offer to. Well, if you do the math and say we spend $50 per lead, 15,000 times 50, that's, I don't even know. I'm going to pull my calculator, tell you exactly how much that is. 15,000 times 50. So that's actually 750 grand of free data we just have hanging out in our CRM. So if you do the math, if you have 1,000 leads, you got $50,000 just hanging out there that you paid for to build a list of motivated sellers. And we don't actually do much to these people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then basically the more advanced piece at the end is how to build out better data in your system. So for all these 10,000 people, you can pick the best ones to call. So without further ado, we're going to hop right into it. All right. Sorry. Yeah, Gino actually called me. Let me see what he says. All right. He said it was going to be important. Oh, I actually have a surprise outside. So stay tuned. I got a surprise. I'm going to bring it back to you guys live. Gino surprising me with something. I don't know what it is. Give me 1 to 2 minutes. I'll actually probably just be leaving. Yeah, it's no, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's probably like almost as tall as me. Bro, I didn't know you were gonna get me a fucking rope. Dude, all right, I'm gonna log back on this call. I'll call you right after. All right, bro, peace. All right, so for everyone there, this is what we got. Gino got me a late birthday present. A freaking massive Red Bull fridge. So, for the honors, we'll leave it in the background. All right, so I'm back. Appreciate everyone staying on. So again, we're gonna go through this. I catch my breath now, but so we're gonna go through the first part as I left off is how to contact more leads, so we can boost more appointments. So one of the big things that we had happen to us is we had all these SMS leads, and we weren't actually getting in touch with them. So we realized that only 40% of the leads that came into our system we would ever talk to. So what do we do? Well, we realized this is a problem, because if we were like, well, if we can talk to the other half of these people, we could totally get more appointments. So the first thing we did is we realized why we weren't contacting them. And then we understood that we didn't have a good drip sequence. We also didn't have a good call sequence. So we didn't know how many times to call them, how many times to text them. So here's what we did is we made this thing called 14 days of hell. 14 days of hell is very simple, but all you're going to do is you're going to call them 6 times. So to call them 3 times in 3 double dials, right? Then what you're going to do is that when they don't answer, after the first set of double dials, you send them an automatic drip text where they're going to get a text, hey, got your information from so-and-so, was just reaching out for when I can help get a little bit more information so we can get you an offer for your property, something like that, right? Then we'll text them that, and then we'll text them every day for 14 days. And what we'll do is we'll call them for the next 14 days, we'll call them 4 times, so 2 double dials a day for the next 14 days. And what that did was it took our no contact rate from 40%, or excuse me, our contact rate. So what it did is it took our contact rate from 40% and moved it all the way up to 85%. So now we're contacting twice as many leads. So now we're getting twice as many appointments just from that. That was one simple thing. Number 2 is how can you boost your conversations per day? So this is another thing. Like you think like one, contacting more of your leads is a big one, but what about just generally when you make a call? Like what we realize is that we would call 10 people and talk to one person. And we started thinking, how can we make it to where we call 10 people, we talk to 2 people or 3 people, something like that, right? And so what we realized is that your phone numbers get marked as spam, and it was preventing us from getting in contact with people. So we created a phone number cleaning process, which I'm going to share with you that SOP. But basically, from a very high level, what we would do is we would go into our, we take our phone number and we'd register it with the federal DNC. It's a one-time thing. Once you do that, then what you do is you have a process where each morning the phone number you are going to be calling with, you call a regular cell phone. So my carrier is Verizon, and Verizon marks spam calls differently than T-Mobile, and T-Mobile marks them different than AT&T. So we would call a different carrier each one. So you'd make 3 phone calls to test your phone to see what it was spam with. And then if it was spam on T-Mobile, or if it was spam on Verizon, or spam on AT&T, there's a specific link that you click on to go and say, hey, this phone number called me and I know who they are. They are not a spammer. So that's a big piece of it. So then what you do is you tell the carriers that, hey, my phone number is not spam. You just do that over and over again. And eventually the carriers are like, okay, this one spam report for 50 no spam reports, this is not a spam number. So your number is not going to be spammed. Another piece, not only that we added on, is a phone number changing process. So we would have, for example, we'll have 8 phone numbers per sales rep or per lead manager, per sales rep. And so what we do is we'd have basically 4 sets of 2, and we'd do 2 groups of outbound dialing. So we would call like 40 people with the first number and then switch to the next number in the day. And then we would call that. And then that way you're not calling more than 40 people on a phone number, and that's going to give you a massive increase in the amount of people you're contacting. Another side note is that when you're doing this, if you realize you make 20 calls and you've only talked to a few people, you should switch another number and maybe throw 3 in for that day. So the more numbers you can use, the better. There's a final piece of this is that we created a list to call all of our people who we've never contacted. Let me actually reframe this. So obviously register your phone numbers, remediate them, which is like saying they're not spam to the carriers, and then also change them. But the last piece is like it goes with who do you call, right? So what we did is we had this massive list of people who were basically had never spoken with us. They were no contacts. We call them working leads. And it's a list of like 2,000 people. And what we realized is that in the first 7 days is the best chance of getting in contact with them. And then the 7 to 14 days is the next best chance. And then 14 to 30 days is the third best chance. And then after 30 days, the odds of them answering your phone call, because if you follow the process, you should have called them a lot of times, the odds of them answering are very, very low. So what we did is we focused our efforts on those first 7 days and the second 14 days to break the list into a smaller piece. So now we can call that more and more times, and we can make sure the process actually gets followed. And as you get more and more leads, breaking it into even smaller sections will work too. So you can make sure that list gets called over and over again, because it's not only about your phone numbers being clean, but if you're calling someone who generally has a better chance of answering the phone or not, that's going to also help you be more effective with your time. So just think about those things. Those are some things to implement right away. So number 3 is a more effective training process. So right away, we have 2 daily trainings for our sales teams. We have a morning meeting and we have an afternoon meeting, which the afternoon meeting is a sales only meeting with only training. We're only going to be doing sales stuff. And the morning meeting is going to be some accountability around this meeting. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we start with good news, gratitude, something you're excited for the first 5 minutes, something positive, right? And then the next 5 minutes, we're going to go through the KPIs where everyone reads them off, and then they tell us their focus. So I would read my KPIs, and the KPIs are calls, conversations, appointments. I'd say, okay, I had 80 calls, I had 20 conversations, and I had 2 appointments. Let's just say those are my numbers. And then I would say, and then everyone would go through, and then we'd start back to the top and be like, okay, my focus today is to call my 2 hot follow-ups that I need to do. And then I'm going to work on the working less than 7 days list. And then after I go through that list, my set amount of times, then I'm going to go through and call my cold follow-up, something like that, right? That would be it. And then what I would say next is the next piece of the meeting is going to be, what do you need help with to get to achieve your daily focus? So for example, if I'm saying I need to convert these 2 hot follow-ups, I would say, and this would be the time where I'd say, hey, I need some help. I have this scenario that I'm dealing with and this objection. How would you guys handle it? And then what we do is we'll take that quick morning thing and we'll give quick assistance to whatever needs to be taken care of so we can get our daily focus done. And that's going to be, again, the first 30 minutes of the day. We're going to do numbers, focus, and then training based on how to achieve our focus. And then what we're going to do in the afternoon, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. In the afternoon is going to be very targeted training based on macro strategy. So what do I mean by this? I mean we want to pick a weekly initiative by picking the biggest lever for what our team needs to learn. So for example, some things that I wrote down for our lead managers, we actually just made this execution plan. So these are like literally, we made this last week. Actually, no, like 2 days ago. I made this 2 days ago that we're going to execute this plan to get our appointment setters, our lead managers up to speed. So we're first going to train on what's an appointment. And we ordered these in order of leverage to get us the most appointments based on time spent training. So first is we're going to train on what's an appointment. Second, motivation, tone, and rapport. Third, properly managing a pipeline. Fourth is objections / disqualifying. So being able to get over objections or disqualify people quickly to not waste your time on the phone or to capture the people who we should be capturing via objections. 5 is digging into conditions so we can get the best information to our acquisitions team so they can understand how to comp and underwrite the property. And then finally, 6th is efficiency training, which is basically being able to go through the CRM more effectively in order to maybe find leads that you don't know about, which we'll get to in a little bit. So what do I, like, there's a lot of stuff I just threw at you. What's the plan? So basically the plan is we got to teach them the goal, and everyone will, once they know the goal, then they know how to work towards it. So that might be like a 1-day training where we do like a presentation on that. And then everything after that is going to be aligned strategically to get us more appointments. So motivation, tone, rapport, we're going to train that for a week. And all we're going to do is we're going to mix call reviews, listening to Chris Voss or other outside sales trainers on this topic, and then also role-playing these scenarios and implementing. Role-playing would be implementing, right? So you need to determine, there's a couple things you need to determine when you're building this plan, is you need to determine what you want your outcome to be. So the outcome is more appointments. And in specifics, if I'm training motivation, tone, and rapport, you want them to be able to ask 3 Socratic questions or have 3 questions about motivation or have a certain level of rapport or answer rebuttals and be able to calm red sellers down with their tonality or something, whatever your problem is, right? That's what you're working towards. That's your North Star. Then you get to figure out as the leader or as the person trying to improve yourself is where are you? And then if you determine where you are in that category, then you understand how to build a plan for that week to basically get to where you want. And so once you do that, then it's pretty easy. You just make a quick plan, execute it. You're going to do that for each piece on a weekly basis. Excuse me. So that is an effective training plan. You want to train in weekly blocks. And here's another piece of the puzzle that you got to think about is if you do this training for a week, but we don't get any better, do we actually finish the training? So you need to have either a feel metric to where I need them to have this much progress, or a metric that you measure, which would maybe be, for example, motivation, tone, rapport. It's like, do they ask 3 Socratic questions in their calls? And if they do those things, then maybe that's your metric to say, hey, they're doing this good enough and they got it. That's what you want to have a success metric to move on. Because if you do motivation, tone, and rapport for an entire week, or you do whatever it is, and then you don't actually learn it, then you can't move on to the next piece because that's the highest leverage thing that we already determined. So we have to keep doing that until it's trained and understood by the team. So that is a bit on that. So that's a longer term play, but it's going to be what provides you the biggest dividends in the long run. So another thing you can do, because a lot of people right now have a ton of leads in their system that they've been generating over the last little bit, whether it's text messaging, whether it's cold calling, whether it's inbound direct mail, whatever you did. So there's a few things we could do is we can take, for us, we have a list of 12,000 cold leads that we can take and we can put it back into a texting campaign and we can just text them every 30 days, right? Whether that's an automatic drip or putting it completely back into a new marketing campaign. And what that would do is it just reactivates leads that have already said they're interested. And so when they contact us again, we can call them right away and be talking to a fairly qualified seller, right? So that's kind of the goal with that. You want to be able to maximize your time and your output to get the highest opportunity, like highest conversion opportunities back in. So that would be texting your leads and trying to contact them again. So I just explained drips, automated, always be sending out drips every 30 days to your cold leads, no matter what. And that's going to be a steady increase of people coming back interested. And the other bit is to put them back into marketing and go again. So another thing too is you can remarket your dead leads. There's so many dead leads that I went through, and they were disqualified because of price. Yeah. So I mean, or they were wrongly in there. They may be like, maybe like there's even some people who like sold their property like 3 or 4 years ago, but then like now the new property owner, if you have that phone number, or they bought a new property and they want to sell it, there's all kinds of different things, right? But one of the statistics that our mentor told us is that they were losing the most deals in the unqualified stage. So he literally just made a remarketing campaign for that, and they started getting deals from him. So something to think about there. Not saying that that's one that is going to guarantee you deals, but it's something to think about. Maybe do it if you're looking for more ways to generate more leads. The other piece of information is you don't want to be calling leads that have completely sold their property, just like last month or whatever. So if you're interested in it and you have a ton of leads, it would make maybe more sense for you. But scrub all the sold properties, and then like in your database, so have like a list of all the sold properties like in the last year, and then your properties in your CRM, and then you can scrub and like move them to like a sold at this date category, so you don't waste your time calling those people. So that's number 4. Number 5, this is the advanced one, and again, I'm just spewing data out, so feel free to ask any questions you guys have. But number 5 is building out a better data system. So what do I mean by that is like every time you talk to a seller, you should be trying to compile some data on the key points of why someone would sell with you. So what I mean by that is someone might have pain, or someone might have motive, like have a pain point today, but may not feel the pain for 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, a year. The timeline for them to actually feel that pain might be really long. So what we want to do is we want to build a database of people who have notes that they are going through an eviction. They're flagged that they're in probate, or they're flagged that they inherited a property. They're flagged that they went through a divorce, that they're tired of having tenants destroyed them, but whatever it is, right? Obviously, we want to be able to get those people to an appointment now so we can get them on offer if that's what they want, but sometimes they don't feel the pain. And humans and not every human is going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And not every sales guy is going to be able to connect to every seller and be able to convert them or relate to them and get them to open up. So what that does is allows you to sort your system by, an example. Did they have motivation? Yes or no? While that's subjective, it's a good directional target. If someone has marked on a lead that this person has motivation and they've spoken with them, it's probably wise to call them again. If someone has a lead that they inherited the property, it's probably wise to call them again, to market to these people over and over again. So recommend building out those systems, and that's definitely helped us get more out of like our big pool of data to clean it and then have like a smaller, more motivated set that we can call more often. And that's all marketing is. You want to put your efforts, again, 80-20 principle, you want to put your efforts in the 20% that's going to get you the 80% return. So that's it. Honestly, do you guys have any questions? That's the main thing that you need to do in order to get more appointments. It's not anything too crazy. It's really just doing what you would imagine you'd have to do it in order to be successful, and then just do it better, more effective, and at a higher level. So there's another thing that I want to mention, just because I feel like this is pretty important for where we're at. Right, it's more important than ever now to get more out of your team and out of your business and out of your leads than ever before. And a lot of you might even know the right processes and the right things to do, and you think they're happening. But if you're not getting the result you want and you know the right way to do it, then you might want to take a closer look and see what actually is going on. There's a thing my dad always told me is like, what you expect from, if you don't inspect, you probably won't get what you expect. And so recently I've had moments like that, where you think, trust, you've been told whatever it is, and then you go and inspect and you realize there's a lot of things falling through the cracks, or there's just tons of cracks in general. So definitely go and take a look at what's going on in your business. Dial in this appointment process. Even if you just take one thing from this video that is going to be able to make you have a better appointment setting lead management department, then I would recommend you go and implement it ASAP. Do it tonight. Why not? Or tomorrow or whatever. But do it as soon as you can. So anyways, if you guys don't have any questions, then I am good. And I appreciate y'all being here today. But this was some definitely, hopefully some good enough value for y'all today. So I'll see y'all next week. Oh, here we go. We got a question. When do you have low response rates with text but good delivery rate around 90? What to do when, what to do. So usually if your delivery rate's high and your response rate is low, either one of two things is happening. Your templates are maybe too wordy and don't have a call to action that makes any sense, or it's not relevant to who you're talking to. So your messaging might be off. I would probably say that's not true if you're not getting replies, because you're just saying like, hey, first name, range, and so 123 Main Street, and that's pretty much all you say. But if you are having this scenario and your templates are right and your messaging is right, then it probably sits on the data that you're targeting. So maybe you've targeted that data a ton recently. Maybe it's not a motivated list. Maybe it's just like owner occupied who bought their house 2 years ago. I would look at what type of people you're actually reaching out to. One good exercise for this, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a little bit more complex, but whenever you have a marketing campaign or anything that you're trying to improve on, so if you're trying to get more replies, you're trying to get more leads, whatever it is you want to have a baseline, right? So this is for leads example, like having data set, like a data set, and having data on what data set works best. So you need to have a baseline for all data, right? So we know text per lead is about 250 right now for us, 250 text per lead. So if I know that's my baseline for all my data, then if I have a list or a campaign or however you organize it, that performs at 500 text per lead, it's a very simple question. Are you going to send that out over a list that has a 100 text per lead? Which one are you picking? It's pretty clear, the 100 text per lead, because that's going to get you more leads, right? Based on effort, based on output, right? 100 text for one lead is better than 500. So you want to do the same thing with your decision making on what list to send and like maybe how to solve this problem. So if your delivery rate is high, but your response rate is low, you probably are sending it to the wrong data. You could have the wrong messaging, probably not. So I would take a peek at what is my baseline for my entire data set and entire campaigns, out of all the campaigns together, and then which ones perform the best. And I want to send the ones that perform the best more frequently. So maybe you find you want to send them every 7 days, and maybe you find you want to send them every 14, every 20, something that you can just maybe push it forward a little bit. Or you have a ton that you just need to put in follow-up on the 30-day follow-up and launch control. And that's how you want to do it. You just would say, okay, which one performed the best last time when I sent it? All right, I'm gonna pick that one. And then see how it performs this time. And you'll kind of get an understanding of like, okay, first time it performed good, second time not so good. Or second time, maybe it was like still good, but not as good as the first time. You know, you can kind of play with it and understand. You just got to keep that data though. You got to track it. So any other questions before we roll out? I guess say goodbye to the Red Bull refrigerator that Gino got me for my birthday. But I'll see you guys next week, live in the Facebook group. If you aren't in here, then get in here. Peace.